sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
This is Dan Jurgen.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to The Krypton Report.
The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC. So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania. Welcome to the Krypton Report Special Edition. That just sounds more fun than just a regular episode. But hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Tyler, the Superman of Blue, and it is a it's a dark early morning here in Ohio. And I say that because I have a special guest with me today. He's here to chat. You might have recognized his voice a couple times now. This is his second time on the show, I believe, and I've been over there chatting with him a couple times. It's Mr. Nate McKenzie. Welcome, Nate.
Hey, Tyler. Thank you very much for having me back on the podcast. It's always fun to talk here, and I'm looking forward to having sorted.
Yeah, me too. It is, like you said, always fun to talk. The hardest time is that time difference. For those who may not know, from his accent, Nate is in Australia. And so currently it's night for him, and it is morning for us. And I mean us because hopefully James will get to join us shortly. It has been a long week for him, and he was like, I might not be able to because, sleep and life. But it happens. We understand. But we're grateful that Nate's here. We're going to chat some more. We are just kind of chat a little bit about Superman and Lois, but also kind of into Superman and Lois, what we hope or want to see in season 2. The show is gearing up to premiere. It's coming along. We're excited. So it's kind of like, all right, what would we like to see happen? We got the one kind of trailer for it. And then we got a poster for season 2 and just thoughts on where the show might go. Just kind of a fun chat. No heavy lifting, no hardcore research today. But yeah, we thought it'd be fun to chat with Nate about that. One thing is, before we started, Nate and I were talking off mic. I just thought that's going to be kind of fun to mention is we were just chit-chatting, and Nate mentioned to me that he had been to Dubai. And I brought up the fact that I told him that I always thought Dubai would be a really awesome place to scout and shoot some exteriors, get some, what's the term nowadays? Like drone shots more than, helicopter shots of the city as a metropolis for a Superman backdrop. And we're just kind of chit-chatting about that idea. Just, Superman in life in general.
Now, as I was saying to you, Tyler, as well, I think it'd be an amazing idea, especially with everything that they've done. That place, I haven't been there now for almost 10 years, so it's interesting to see what they've done then. And yeah, I reckon it'd be an awesome backdrop for a Superman.
I just think it has a great, clean, futuristic look compared to just, shooting at Chicago and be like, it's Metropolis. No, Chris Nolan, it's Chicago. You didn't even dress it up a little. I mean, with the way that today's technology works, I feel like you could shoot a couple of cities and then digitally alter and blend them together to make something that looks a little bit different. And that's just kind of what I'd like to see for a skylight. So it's one thing when I've never been to the town, because then I'm like, oh, okay, it's Metropolis or it's Gotham. It's different when you've been there, because then you're like, oh, that's just this city.
Oh, it's even interesting when I remember when they filmed Superman Returns in Australia, and you got to see parts of Sydney where they were. Just go, I know exactly where you were for that scene. I know what bar you were when, Brandon Routh and Jimmy and Jack Larson were actually in the bar. I actually remember the bar that they were in Sydney where they filmed that one. So it's always interesting. It's always fun to find those places where they have filmed certain movies. But yeah, it's definitely awesome to see if they film such places where you've never been before. Just give you an imagination. Just go place.
That is cool. I didn't even think about the bar scenes. So the one thing about like Superman Returns in Australia that always kind of struck me was listening to the stories about them trying to grow corn and all this for the Kent Farm scene. And it's like, oh, I never even thought about that.
Well, even as I got older and just finding more about Superman as an adult, realizing that even I didn't know that most of Superman the movie was filmed, in England. And as a kid, you just don't, like me, I just thought the whole thing was filmed in America. You just watch it in New York, just think, okay. Yep. Then actually, when you learn more about it, you find out how much of the film was in England and also in the States as well. Yeah, you just don't realise that when you're a bit younger, and all you see is what you see.
See, there's another example. You brought it up perfectly. Superman the movie, like, it's Metropolis, but you show us the Statue of Liberty. You basically make it feel like it's New York City, okay?
Yeah. Like,
you're like, oh, it's Times Square, but there's the Daily Planet in the background. Okay, you're not really helping your case here, okay? You're not really making me see that it's not that place. I want to feel like I've been somewhere I've never been, So speaking of, real quick, because we'll get into everything while we're here, are you excited for the Batman? Because I mentioned to you, like, I'm excited that, they filmed in Glasgow and all this to make Gotham look different and give it more of an old feel and a gothic feel compared to just shooting in Chicago. Are you excited for it? No? Could care less?
I'm excited about anything that comes out in DC. I know there's a lot of, I wouldn't say hatred, but there's a lot of, when they first put out the initial images of, of the characters that are coming into this movie, and everyone's still got Ben Affleck in their mind. But we've got to remember as well, when Ben Affleck came in for the Snyderverse side of things, it wasn't long after the Nolanverse, with the trilogy, and it was pretty close when Christian Bale, wore the cowl, and then also Ben Affleck took the role. So, but I'm actually really looking forward to it. I just want to see what the new take is and how they're doing it. The scenes just makes, like me, it just seems very dark. It seems like a very dark Batman movie, and I'm excited to see what they do and whether or not it's going to be part of any new streaming side of things, whether it's being incorporated into any of the new TV shows that are coming on, or whether it's just going to be its own thing. But I love everything they bring out. I'll watch it. I'll go in with an open mind and hopefully enjoy it as much as the next person hopes.
I just try to be as positive as possible with what's going on. I don't feel like they've ever done anything that I completely have hated enough to where I'm up in arms. It's very easy to just say, oh, Warner Brothers this, but Warner Brothers, the studio, is a company that's had a lot of changes and turnover. And then, you have actors and people who don't want to do stuff, and it gets to be complicated. So I try to just be glad when I get good stuff. Maybe it's not exactly what I wanted, but I'm getting something. As far as the Batman goes, my biggest kind of downside, the costume to me, a lot of people go to that, is it looks like the Noel costume mixed with the Gotham by Gaslight. And considering that it's still early in his Bat career, it works. It gives us somewhere to go, something to tweak and change its own identity. It's not like the greatest Batman costume, but it's something to see that still works. Some people are iffy about the car. It's different because it's a return to being more of a car than something crazy. But once again, it's still early in his batting career. My biggest beef, I think, is just the look of the Riddler, like being this, you're just wearing a jacket and this weird mask. So it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was strange. Initially, they were bringing so many different characters into the first movie. So you've got the Penguin, you've got the Riddler, you've got Catwoman. I don't know whether there's just going to be small parts for any, like, all the Penguin, all the Riddler, but, obviously the main storyline sounds like it's about the Riddler and about his hatred towards Batman, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Yeah.
I feel like the Catwoman's so easy to do because she's this very walks the line character, so you can blend her into things. Penguin is good because he can just be a mob boss, so you don't have to kind of make him up front and center. The only thing I told this to James is I would wish that they would just bring in Harvey Dent from the beginning and give us a whole movie with him as Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Maybe even 2 whole movies as Harvey Dent. And then if you continue a 3rd movie where he becomes Two-Face. So we really get to know and love this character before his descent. Instead of just, here he is, first movie, now he's Two-Face, goodbye.
Yeah, I agree. To have that storyline of that character for a lengthy period of time rather than just have it all in one, I think that's a good idea. I think that's what they try to do, Batman 89, but obviously didn't go down that stream. But going to talk about those characters again, I was just thinking about, if you go back to Gotham, the series, the 3 main villains, the 3 characters, and that was Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman. So maybe that's the reason why they went down this line, just thinking everyone, those who enjoyed Gotham are going to enjoy the Batman because they've come off those characters from the TV show. I could be thinking the wrong thing there as well, so you never know.
No, I mean, you're not too far off. I mean, what's funny is Harvey Dent appeared, I think, in maybe 2 episodes of Gotham, like in the first season, and then by the end, when they were just bringing in every Batman villain possible, he is like the one to never reemerge. Like, he never came back. There was never, like, he didn't become Two-Face. He's like the one villain that you could be like, oh, finally, when he actually is Batman, there'll be a villain ready to go for Batman instead of already being there for Bruce Wayne. But we diverge. So, what we're here to talk about is season 2 of Superman and Lois is coming. And we're just going to talk, how did you enjoy season 1? Some feedback on just your thoughts on the characters, the show in general.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. As most people that heard my podcast, heard me speak to yourself as well, I love all forms of Superman, but Smallville is my favourite TV show. And I love Lois and Clark, and so the fact that they're bringing Superman as a series, I was all on board. Tyler coming from Supergirl and then finishing off on Crisis. I didn't know what to expect at the start. I understand why they. I'm sure this is spoken about so many different occasions as well, but Tyler's the way he did his performance as Superman and Clark Kent. I thought Clark did his Clark Kent awesomely when he first was on Supergirl. But then they changed the way Superman was in that show because Supergirl was the main character. Superman was like the supporting character. And
wait! Did you say Supergirl was the main character of her own show? Are you serious? Because that's not what happened in the 6th season. It was the Super Friends only with Supergirl barely being a blip on her own show. But
no, exactly, and that was the take. And I've heard so many people say the same sort of thing. And to see Tyler take control of his own show, and I was on board from the first episode. I would have loved, and I've heard other people say it. I've heard Zach Moore say the same thing as well. I think you might have mentioned it as well. I would have loved to have seen the whole season just stay in Metropolis. We've had Smallville. We had 10 seasons of Smallville, even though they basically went to Metropolis halfway through their series. But I understand why they did it the way they did it. It was interesting because we all know that it's part of the Arrowverse. To me, it was completely filmed differently, and you wouldn't see this as an aspect of the Arrowverse other than John Diggle that we saw in one episode. So, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the twist with Morgan Edge. Didn't see that one coming. Obviously, I saw the fact that he was the villain from the get-go, but not see that was the half brother of Kal-El. That was interesting, and I love the nostalgia side of things. I loved it when one episode that went back to basically retell the origin story of this Clark Kent. That was a great episode. I love the original. There was the Fleischer costume. That was and yeah, it always leads back to your question of trunks or no trunk. I love that costume with trunks, but like you say, it has to work. It has to look, and I think in that costume it looks really good. But I think the suit's better from the Supergirl show. I think they've changed a little bit for season 2, which I'm looking forward to. They've made the red a little bit redder. That makes sense. It's not as dark.
Yeah.
So
They altered his boots.
yeah, they've definitely done that. But a couple of things that season 1, I think I don't know. Obviously, COVID was going on with filming, so I would have liked to have seen Jimmy Olsen make an appearance.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the last couple of seasons of Supergirl. Is he making a reappearance of Supergirl at all in season 6?
Jimmy?
Yeah.
At the very end, he does.
Oh, okay. So, but other than that, I absolutely love season 1. I love the twist with the kids at the start. I think everyone thought initially Jonathan was going to have powers, and then the twist with Jordan. I love how they brought that into the series and how Jordan's way he went about himself changed as well. And I think everyone's just looking forward to season 2 and looking forward to what happens. I've just read the synopsis on IMDb about the first 2 episodes, and it's going to be very interesting, I think, from the get-go.
You said, I'm glad that they didn't keep Jordan as like the angry, angsty teen through the whole thing. My thought was, it was kind of like a lot of Jordan's problems was he had 2 sides of himself that were fighting each other and conflicting. And then finally, they were beginning to integrate to being one person. So, we'll kind of move forward now with what our thoughts on season 2. And maybe we'll kind of go a little character by character and kind of talk about where we think might happen or what with them. One thing if you watch Superman and Lois, I feel like when the pilot started, the suit was more padded, but then I feel like as the season went on, the suit got better fitted. I don't know if that's because Tyler didn't get a chance to work out as much to get ready for filming, or they had it for stunts or something. It just looks like as the season goes on, the suit looks better compared to like the first episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that stands out for me, and I don't know if you saw it, there's some occasions the Superman symbol on his chest looks like a screen printed on, and you can hardly see it sometimes, and then sometimes it's actually brighter on his chest, which I actually wanted it bigger. That's the one thing I wish they brought from the Supergirl show was the size of the Superman shield. I just hope it was bigger on his chest, but it looks like it's a little bit better for season 2.
His shield symbol on his Supergirl TV series suit, I liked. So the only thing I would wish they would do to his costume is I wish they would give him a little bit of a lower neckline instead of being so high.
Yeah.
And then give him basically the symbol that was on his previous costume. Make it bigger and the 3D, make it pop. And like you said, not feel like it's screen just printed on there, because that's really how it looks and feels.
Yeah, I agree.
So season 1 ends on an interesting cliffhanger, so to speak, where you've had this interesting kind of arc of John Henry Irons and Clark becoming friends. And at the very end of season 1, Natalie shows up, John's daughter from his Earth proper. And basically she followed her father, and due to how time travel works, even though she was, seconds behind him or whatever, there was a time lapse of when she actually arrives. And that's kind of our engine going forward. So we'll start with John. Going into season 2, what do you think is going to be John's? What do you think? What do you want to see with the character? Like what are your thoughts? This is all speculative, people. Like this is just us chit chatting as friends, just kind of like what do we want out of the show in season 2?
Well, firstly, I love John Henry Irons as a character. I love Steel as a superhero. It was a shame in some instances that he was from a different Earth. But I love the fact that they brought him onto this Earth, and now that we all know who he was, and the twist of obviously everything. But I think he's moving forward. I think initially, with the retirement of General Lane, Sam Lane, I'm thinking of he might go down the military side of things. He might help Superman in that side of things. He might actually not necessarily take over Sam's role as general, but he might help him out in with different weapons and those sort of things. And assist Superman in those areas. But I think the initial part is when you spoke about Natalie, the first thing that she sees is Lois and her Earth. That's her mother. So it'd be interesting to see how that story is told. First episode, coming back, how that is spoken about, whether it's going to develop into a long couple of episodes and they discuss about it, or whether it's just going to be a quick, this is not your real mother. It's just moved on to the next scene. But I'm looking forward to see where they do. Unless, I'm pretty sure we found out that the real John Henry Irons on this Earth is actually dead. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they say that, and my thought is, John Henry could assume the identity, I think, real easily of the John Henry Irons of this Earth.
Yeah.
All you have to do is they faked his military undercover work. His death was faked. You know what I'm saying? Type thing.
Yeah.
And he comes back, and then you create conflict for the sister that lives on this Earth. And kind of give him story. They could do that route. You said he could be part of the military task force, the DOD, about aliens. What I would like, at first, I liked it was John Henry Irons in a way. I'm glad it wasn't Lex Luthor.
I think we all were.
The one problem I have is to me, John Henry Irons represents kind of the fulfillment of Superman's mission. The fact that, he was a guy who was saved by Superman, and then when Superman died, he kind of stepped up I have special abilities and powers to do my part, and I'm going to help where my hero is no more. And he was inspired by Superman and lived by that ideals that Superman had. And in this, it starts off he's more of an antagonist for Superman, and it's different. So I was like, huh. And they had to work it out. So, and I think that they grew it well enough that you were buying kind of their friendship coming at the end. For season 2, I would like to see John get to grow a little bit more, finding his place. I think, as much as I love the character, I think he doesn't need to be there the whole time. He needs to kind of go off on his own and come back around. I want to see him build a new suit with his daughter.
Yeah.
And I want him to get the cape and the steel shield. I really want him to get a new, more comic accurate looking steel suit, and not the Master Chief looking suit.
Yeah, that'd be wicked if we got that. That'd be so awesome.
So that's what I kind of hoping to see. I do know the conflict of her seeing Lois and that being her mom kind of thing. That's weird, but it's an engine for conflict that they did that, John Henry on that Earth with Lois. because it always does make it like a little bit weird of just having him around, because you want him around with Clark, but then there's always that like he sees her kind of thing, and how's she not going to remind him of his wife kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it can also make things very odd and, keep some sort of distance between the Kents and John Henry. So, and as far as like in this season with Natalie, I'm not sure what to take, if she's going to be accepting of things, if she maybe will be the one that's like, Dad, we need to go. We need to do our own thing and move forward. And maybe she'll be able to find closure or something in her mom's death by getting to talk to this world's Lois. And yes, it's a daughter. It's a Lois. And yes, her name's Natalie, but it's not your daughter, Lois.
Yeah.
It's not the daughter you and Clark would have had that you lost. So I really don't want to see. I feel like they did a really good job in season 1 with every character and their relationship and the logic of things that they experience. Instead of, being that melodrama and over done, where you're just like, characters are making bad decisions or do things just to make conflict. I feel like I want them to continue being smart people.
No, you're 100% right, and I think everyone had the feeling that halfway through the season, I know we're going off John a little bit, but I think everyone thought there was going to be something between Lana and Clark, and I'm glad they didn't go down that stream. We'll probably talk about it a little bit later. I'm just glad they didn't do that. They didn't, the whole farm boy, and we were all worried about Lana's husband. We thought that was probably not so good at the start. We learned that he's actually a really good guy, and he just has family in his town. And, I love the fact that those two stayed strong together, Lana and her husband. They stayed strong, and they didn't go down that path. I was glad that they did that. Interesting to see how those two characters are portrayed.
So while we're there, we could just jump over there with Kyle and Lana and their daughter. I think, for Lana, I think we have the opportunity that Lana, Clark said about her being the heart of Smallville, that she should be mayor and really get involved with the town. And Kyle, is back to working as the fire and chief. And should he learn Clark's secret? Should Lana finally know? Like, would that create conflict between them that he never did tell her? And then, that was a big deal that the first season hit on, because, in most comics, Lana's the first person Clark tells.
Yeah.
But they made a big point about how the woman that Clark loves will be the woman he can share the secret with. And that built the strength between him and Lois even more. So could we have conflict that way where people discover Clark's secret, especially with the fact that their daughter's dating Jordan and she's starting to get a little suspicious on some things, on Jordan's behavior. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that moves forward. Their relationship, Jordan and Sarah's relationship this season, whether it's going to go down the same path like Lana's. And talking about how Lana's normally the first one to know, it's going back to Superman the animated series. He never actually tells Lana, but she always knew.
Yes.
And it'd be interesting to see whether that's the same here, whether she's always known, but she just hasn't told by Clark, whether she just kept the secret her whole life. And, but yeah, if it does happen, you'd think it'd be in season 2. You'd want it to stretch on too long, but if he doesn't find out, doesn't know, I can understand why, as you spoke about before, about the only person that knows, loved one that he loves the most, that's his wife. His 2 kids finally had the courage to tell. But you look at everything that happens after that effect. Once they do find out, they now have to fly and do all those things to protect the father as well. So, he doesn't want to put that on other people. He can help.
My cat just did something crazy. I was like, "What are you doing, cat?" So Sam, General Sam Lane, in this season now, it's like, what is his role? I think I would like him to be around for a little while as kind of just trying to be normal grandpa, and then we see he gets restless and he kind of has to go off and do his own thing. Because, one thing I can't stand is in shows is when characters kind of outlive their usefulness and they don't know what to do with them, but they just keep them around and they're just there doing dumb stuff or just being an obstacle for nothing more than we want to keep this person around but really have nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
A perfect example is how long Malcolm Merlyn got stretched out on Arrow.
Yeah, true.
And if you're a Supernatural fan, I love Castiel, but there were times that his character was just there where I'm like, you could have done something better or let him be gone for a while and bring him back. But, that's hard to do with actors and stuff. So I can understand. But what do you do with Sam now? Like, you start to show him what's Sam without the military. I think kind of his arc, his story.
Could it be he tries to be the father to Lois that he always wanted, maybe, and maybe he tries too hard to do that, and then she starts to realise that, my father is general. He is that man, and he can't go down that other the civilian path that he's trying so hard to do it for his daughter. But it'll be interesting to see. But one thing I was going to ask you before is with regards, do you like the idea that, or did it make any difference to you, the fact they changed the actor? Do you reckon anyone noticed that, who's seen Supergirl, the actor creating 4 different times Supergirl, and the fact they changed the actor for Ben and Lois? Do you think it made any difference at all?
I don't think it did. I'm okay with the change. I mean, they changed Morgan Edge too from Supergirl.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, but it is post-crisis.
Yeah, and that's where my brain goes too. Is everything's post-crisis, especially the fact they've got 2 kids now instead of 1 as well, and he's got a new suit too. So yeah.
The other thing was, with this season, I think this season will be the one that would grab you because we're having Lucy Lane brought in. Yeah. And it is Jenna Dewan from Supergirl. Yeah. And the fact that Lois never interacted with her father on Supergirl.
Yep.
It was Lucy. And so now that Lucy's coming over, I think that might be where you would be like, okay, it is now a little bit more disjointed than I saw on Supergirl. But at the same time, I think you can kind of roll with it, Yeah. Especially now where Supergirl season 1 had gotten so detached from where the show moved forward. So I'm excited to see Lucy come into fold especially with this Lucy, because I feel like this Lucy really is more of like the daughter Sam wanted, would keep her military career as her story and where she was compared to with Lois. And then, of course, Sam's been around Lois more. And it brings in the fold, like, does Lucy know Clark's story, his secret? Is it a family thing that they share or not? So that'll be an interesting catalyst of maybe why Sam with Lois so much? Well, we know that Sam was with Lois so much not only because of his grandsons, but because he works with Clark. So we'll see where that goes. I'm excited to see that kind of get brought in. I think you can have family drama without being family melodrama, and that's what I've liked so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. You go back to this Supergirl season 1, like the dynamic between Lucy and her father there, and then in Superman and Lois, it's all Lois and her father. And yeah, look, if Lucy comes in, we see whether she's got hatred towards Lois because now he's taken all of his time, or whether she just comes in with open arms, goes, all right, let's do this, or whether she's come back because Dad's struggling because he's retired from the military, and that's why she comes to Lois and say, hey, you pushed him away from this. I guess we understand he was a bad father, but he was really good at his job. So, I'm looking forward to the dynamic. And I love continuity, so anytime they can bring back an actor again from the past to the future, I'm looking to see.
Amen. All right, moving with our core cast, let's get into the brothers Kent. We'll start with John. With Jonathan, now I've stated this before with people. Yes, his name is Jonathan Kent. But what they've done is they've taken the Jonathan Kent from the comics and split him into two characters. There's not a direct comic translation to these characters because they are, basically split from the comic book Jonathan. I can't talk. It's early. So it's not a direct correlation if you're like, oh man, in the comics, John Kent did this, this, and this. Well, yeah, but this is a little bit different. Because remember, the baby was John, and then Crisis happened, and then we got two.
Yeah.
I think this season's going to be more about Jonathan trying to find out his place in everything. And that's continuing from last season. He kind of has the start of a girlfriend whose father was a supervillain in Central City. So that could be a really cool thread if they wanted to do a crossover with The Flash.
Yep.
I would love to see Barry and Clark interact and Barry show up on the farm. I think it's interesting because, Jonathan's pretty much lost everything that defined himself. So where does he go? How does he rebel? Does he go down a darker path, or does he rebuild himself? Like where, he's been the golden child and now he's just there. I do want to say that looking at the power set we've seen Jordan display, I think it could be interesting if Jonathan developed powers, but he got like speed, agility, like he got different powers than what Jordan was showing, because it does seem that maybe Jonathan does have some power in him. It's just not manifesting on the grand scale.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking I was about to ask the same question to yourself, because you go back to the pilot episode and I think we saw Jonathan as, a youngster, and we actually saw him, break the rope, and we all thought straight away that, okay, so Jonathan's going to be the Jonathan Kent that we know from the comics. Then they twisted that, and my feelings was the same as yours. Is they're going to split it. They're going to go down the middle, and Jonathan's going to get half powers, and Jordan's going to get the other half. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. But whether or not we see that in this season, or I've heard people talk about, is Jonathan going to go down a darker path because he's gone from excessive to Metropolis, now he's come to Smallville, and he's basically turned into Jordan of Metropolis, so to speak. And now obviously the roles have been reversed. So, but I love the fact that Jonathan, even though he had a couple of off days, as we all do, but I love the fact that still, in the end, he came through for his family and his brother when they needed him most, and he still stuck up for him when probably didn't deserve it. And But yeah, whether he stays on that path in season 2, I'm not sure. Whether he gets powers, wait to see, and whether he's able to stay on the side of good and not go down the evil side.
I completely agree. I don't want to see that. Like I said, I don't want to see that. I just think you can develop and do more with him. Does he start to go down more of like a journalism thing, or does he kind of carve out his own identity? You know, he's still.
You remember the movie? Remember the movie Sky High?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love Sky High.
It's almost the opposite. You know how the son gets the powers of the parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this time the kids are getting split up of the powers of the dad. That's where my mind just went.
That's a good movie. I watched that recently within the last year with the kids. I showed it to my kids for like a family movie night, and they really enjoyed it.
I loved having Wonder Woman on there too. I thought Linda Carter was so cool as the principal.
Principal powers.
Sorry about going off topic, but my brain just went there when we started talking about powers.
No, I think I like the fact that the heavy set dude was the speedster.
Yeah,
you know, in Sky High. I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, represent." Because and that, like I said, we've never seen Jordan display speed.
No,
that's why I think it'd be interesting if Jonathan develops more of a speed ability. Because there's a couple, like you said, the rope. I think the way he stops Jordan's punch, like. Yeah, it broke his arm, but I think it should have shattered his arm if it wasn't him. You know, I think there's residual energy in there. I want to bring this up because I almost forgot. My wife is the one who mentioned this to me before. Is like the crystal that broke that was Jor-El in the fortress and everything.
Yep.
The crystal regrowing and reforming because crystal naturally can do that. But the idea that Clark does have the sun crystal from Morgan Edge.
Yeah.
That was his mom. And seeing him use that would be really cool. I'm trying to think of who I would cast as his mom right now in my head. And I'm not thinking of anybody.
My head, I don't know why, my head just went to Helen Slater. That's just because I remember she was on Smallville not too long ago, and always holding to Smallville. That's the only reason my head went to Helen Slater.
Yeah, but she was Supergirl's adoptive mom.
Yeah,
and that's the problem there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's in Supergirl. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm just trying to think. Like legacy casting is always. I got it, dude. Totally got it. Why did it take me this long? This right here. This is where you bring in Stacey Hyduck.
Yeah, that is awesome, actually, Aaron.
Because they have yet. Because I would have straight up. They got Angus McFarlane. Is it Angus McFarlane to be Jor-El McFadden? Sorry, I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You were in. You know, I only know you from like 2 movies.
Braveheart's one.
Saw. No, see, everyone says Braveheart, but that's not right. I think of him from Saw.
Okay.
3, and then he was in Warriors of Virtue.
Okay.
Where he fought kangaroos.
Oh, jeez.
In the 90s.
Was it filmed in Australia?
I don't know. Like, look it up. Just look it up after. Like, go on YouTube and look up Warriors of Virtue.
I'm writing this down now. Warriors of Virtue. Okay.
I'll find it. I'll send it to you. We have the internet. But I think he did all right. But I feel like that would have been the best time to bring in like Gerard Christopher as Jor-El. And I think, you know, because that is like one of the shows that's not been represented in any kind of Arrowverse or even really Superman. You know, because Superman always brings back legacy actors and connects from other series, and Superboy hasn't gotten its moment. So that's what I'm calling now. Stacey Heiduck as Lara. Mic drop.
Yep.
Now.
I'm 100% for it. I'm all for it. I'm pretty sure Sam Rizzo would be for it too.
Oh yeah, he'd be on that. I'll send him a message. I'll be like, Sam, this is my plan. All right, where we at? Who we got? Okay, so now Jordan. Let's talk Jordan. I feel like almost as an arc, not saying there's a difference between what I want to see and what I think would make a good story arcs. Okay, people, is creating a little more distance and conflict with the brothers of the fact of Jordan. And it's natural. It's not forced. It's more of Jordan happy with life and getting more into that, how Jordan is on that high of everything's good. He's happy. He's got his girlfriend. Things are good for him. He gets maybe a little arrogant and starts, in this season. But I'd also like him maybe to have conflict with Sarah where he has to try to keep his secret. And it kind of falls into some of those Smallville tropes of him. And he has to decide, because the thing is, if his secret isn't his secret, it's his family's secret. So he can't tell Sarah, hey, I'm this, without saying, hey, my dad is the Superman.
Yeah.
I would like to see him, I'm going to say it, I want to see him get a suit.
Yeah.
A little bit, even if it's more like when John Kent, Superboy in the comics first came out, when it was like a jeans and a shirt kind of thing. Yeah. If it's something a little bit like a jacket inspired like that, I want to see him get a suit and do more kind of, I like the idea of him being almost Clark's sidekick. And them doing stuff together, father, son, superheroing it, as he develops his powers. And he does eventually get the power of, maybe he eventually does get the power of flight. That's what they're building up to. If they go that route, which I think they should, keeping it more in line with the power set of John in the comics.
I reckon it might almost be, initially I reckon he might go rogue, as in like he wants to save people. He wants to be his father. He wants to be Superman. So he wants to go out there, and Clark basically says, no, you're not ready. And I reckon he'll just go off do his own thing. He'll make his own costume and go and do that. I think by the end of the season, they'll come together and he'll get like a better costume. And I think we'll go to season 3 as father and son as a team. But I reckon at the start, there might be a little animosity there with Clark not believing that George can go out there on his own and do those things. So I reckon he might go and do it without Clark's permission.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thought of just building in the story, and because this Clark is more hesitant on his family, and what he wants them to do in the life. He's not forcing him to do it. He's not like giving him like, okay, you have this, you need to go out and do this. No, he's not. All right. So moving forward, Lois. Like we mentioned on a little bit, like with Lois in this season, having the Natalie and how she maybe can find closure in that, or they can find closure in each other. What that conflict is. I don't really like seeing a lot of conflict between Clark and Lois. I mean, there's always that, I think, level of conflict in any healthy relationship and marriage of just being people and growing. But I don't need, like I said, over dramatic melodrama of Clark and Lois. She's now becoming the partner in the newspaper. And what happens there with her and Chrissy's relationship? Because, so much of the first season was hiding certain facts because she had to protect Clark and the kryptonite and all this, what she knew. So how does that work for it? Does, somebody needs to find Clark's secret out this season. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. Does Chrissy find out? And does that put her in is she upset with that? Does that put her in some sort of where she finds journalism non-integrity in the fact that Lois knows Superman is Clark, and then just their history. What happens? So is there conflict there with the newspapers, or conflict? Because I think an interesting storyline is that Perry White could come to visit, and what would that look like? Perry being around and Lois kind of taking over in a way the Perry role. Or what if Lois gets offered, like Perry's retiring and Lois gets an offer to return to Metropolis to take over the Daily Planet? What does that look like for her and the conflict of the family, I do. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of good, a lot of points you had there, and I think you can go down any one of those paths and you'll make a terrific storyline for the season. And I didn't see that come at the end of season 1 when she went in partners with Chrissy for the Smallville Gazette. And I liked it. Like initially in season 2, is Lois going to try and take over now that they're partners? Or whether she's just going to say, look, this has always been your paper. I'm just still happy to work for you. And like you said, trying to hold that secret as well, because that's what caused friction initially, because she was holding reports back for her father and all that stuff. So there's a lot of good opportunities there they can utilise. Like I said, I'd love to see Perry White, come in and either try to convince her to come back or, something along those lines. So, yeah, just interesting to see how it goes. And I love, the actor or the actress who played. I love, Elizabeth Tulloch, who plays Lois Lane. I think she does an amazing job, Lois Lane. And it's just great. And the chemistry that between her and Tyler, you just see that they enjoy each other's company and they get along really well and just go far off each other really well in the scenes. Interesting to see how that chemistry comes together in season 2 as well.
I agree. So now, Clark, Superman.
He needs a shave.
Well, my thing is, if you go back and you look at when Tyler's a very, I don't want to say a hairy guy, but he does grow a quick 5 o'clock shadow. And if you go back and see when he was on Supergirl in the first one, yeah, he kept a clean shave and all that. Mm. But that's easy to do when you're guesting on a show.
Yeah, true.
And you're just, but leading the series and like if you're already like having, a little bit of a scruffle, because I've said this before, the thing about Tyler as Superman is when you look at him, you're like, I could see it. He's not like that perfect from the comics looking Superman, but him as an actor, as the character, I'm like, yes, there it is. Kind of like Dean Cain, is like when you look at Dean Cain, you don't automatically think, oh yeah, you look like Superman. But then as he acts, you see things that you like in his performance. For this season, with season 2, we know that we have I can't remember the character's name, it evades me, that's coming in for the DOD. The actor was on Teen Wolf with Tyler. So we know there's some conflict there. And honestly, I would like to see a Superman's arc, more of him pulling away from working with the DOD now that Sam is gone. Maybe teasing in something from where Supergirl, is bringing back the DEO. So it'd be easy to set up something with, someone from like Martian Manhunter cameoing or whatever. And, Superman having more conflicts with the DOD because Sam's not there. I think for Clark, I want to see him, he needs a job. Okay. Being dad is awesome. I love it. But I think it'd be cool if we saw him really doing more of the farm, and really bringing back the Kent farm, and him. That's what he's doing, I think things like that of him working on the farm would be cool to see, and that being something that we see more of, just Clark being the farmer, kind of returning to those roots more for him, as much as, or he, starts doing like a blog or some sort of, like, he gets a job or something online as like a correspondent, or like just freelance writing or something. I think that could be really interesting for him to still trying to be his voice and his creative output instead of being as much. But there's nothing wrong with him kind of being in the background, just there for his family, for his boys, especially with, I liked when he got the, assistant coach to be there for his sons, and especially for Jordan.
Yeah, it was a great scene. I love the scene when he was trying to pick up the water container and he was struggling as Clark. I just thought that was a classic Clark Kent scene. That was one of the best scenes of the season for some reason.
Just because it was fun, he's kind of having fun trying to, he's like, Dad, don't make it too obvious that you can't lift this. As far as like the overarching villain, I don't know. I mean, they did a good job kind of surprising us last season. So where I think would be a good place to go, and who to use, I don't know. I think one episode that I want to pitch is an episode where the family returns to Metropolis and they go out to eat at Bibbo's, and we get to meet Bibbo. Oh,
that'd be awesome. I'd love to see that.
I think that would be really cool to have, a Bibbo, because I think, or if not, like a family goes back to Metropolis, we get another kind of flashback episode that, fills in some of their story when they lived in Metropolis, or Clark and Lois's early years or something, or some sort of, maybe thing that Clark investigated, like just as like a one-off, not like a continuation, but something maybe he investigated, is coming back, and Clark has to go back to try to finish the investigation or help the police. And you can get like I can't remember it is post-crisis, so they can change it. So that's cool. If Maggie Sawyer had already worked at Metropolis when she transferred on Supergirl or not. Or we could do Dan Turpin, just some of those characters that we know from Superman's, group, Metropolis family, so to speak. You could get for like a one-off or a two-off episode, and could be fun, seeing them, because I do like the Smallville aspect of them being there and trying that struggle of where to raise your kids and how to raise your kids, even though the boys are in high school, finishing high school kind of thing. I think it's a struggle a lot of parents have. If, do I want to raise my kid here? Do I want to move somewhere else for them? Can you go home again? One thing that I had said in season 1 that really didn't come to fruition was kind of the idea of Clark learning, and like something for him is like the town of Smallville that he loved no longer exists, and him having to really see Smallville for what it is now and not what it was. But with that, Clark finding a way to try to bring back the Smallville of yesteryear, trying to inspire the town to be the Smallville that he grew up with, and go back to being that community that and everything that he loved and cherished. So I don't know.
You have a lot of great points there, and there's so many different ways you can go down the line with how season 2 is going to go, especially with Clark. And I love what you spoke about with him and the family go back to Metropolis for a day and go to Bibbo's restaurant. That'd be so cool. It would be awesome to see an episode like that with Dan Turpin, Maggie Sawyer. That'd be awesome as well. just have a little bit of more of the Superman family, so to speak. You don't see much of that in live action. Like even in Smallville, you saw like one episode of Dan Turpin, and I think there was one or two episodes you saw of Maggie Stoy went together as a team up or anything like that. So, other than in the animated series, the main villain. It's interesting whether they'll have a story arc again, like they did in season 1, where they just have one main villain, or whether they'll have a couple of different villains rock up throughout. I think the biggest thing they did with Supergirl, they had so many of Superman's villains rock up in that series, and now they're probably thinking, do we bring any of those villains over to and Lois, or do we have to find ones we haven't used before? And I can't remember if Parasite was used.
He was,
yeah.
But I don't know if he was used post-crisis, and that's kind of the linchpin of
everything. Yeah,
thinking about, and that was always the biggest issue with Supergirl. The series was, James and I have talked about this a lot. Of like, should they have made Supergirl more of the Superman of the universe and not had Superman, but just had Supergirl?
Yeah,
because they had done so many similar Superman beats with her character. And then they started giving her so many Superman stories, and then they, of course, brought in Superman, and still they were giving her Superman's villains, Superman's stories. That now we have Superman proper, and it's like, okay, well, who can we use? What can we use? And, like we said, it is post-crisis. There is some that you can kind of redo or reblend in. One character, I'm throwing this out there, that I always thought would be great to have. This is before they brought him to Supergirl, and now I think they could bring him back and maybe do something more and better with him. Would be Manchester Black.
Yeah,
I feel like they didn't really do him justice on Supergirl. Before he was cast, I always thought James Marsters would be cool as an older Manchester Black.
I can visually picture it now. Actually, now that you say that,
because Superman's been doing his Superman thing for a while. So you have an older Manchester Black. Maybe he gets out and he comes after Superman, but he comes after Jordan and Jonathan. And comes to Superman that way. I think that could be a cool character to read that didn't really get the justice they deserved on Supergirl. I'm sure there's more that we could think of. Of course, did my pitch for the crossover, that I pitched was it last month? Yeah, last month, James and I did what we'd like to see as a future crossover in the universe episode.
Oh, yep, I remember that one, yep. That was Mongol?
Yep. It was with World and Mongol and a tournament. And so I think there is, Brainiac proper. We've had the name mentioned with Brainiac 5, but we haven't had a proper Brainiac. I think just bringing Brainiac from Krypton.
Yeah, that would be my pitch as well. I was going to bring that up to you as well.
Just, I'm still in my headcanon right now until you prove me wrong. The post-crisis Superman story involves Krypton, the series, where Seg-El is actually Tyler's grandpa. That's my headcanon right now.
And it can be. I don't see why it can't be. I think as soon as Crisis went on, there was so many different ideals that could use moving forward. All the social media, different avenues of Superman characters out there. Why wouldn't you use Krypton? I still wish it went on for more seasons. Hopefully,
I wish they would do a movie, much like how Sci-Fi Channel would do like Battlestar Galactica movies in between seasons.
Yep.
I wish they would give us a Krypton movie and kind of wrap up the season, what would have been the season 3 threads. Because season 2 was so much better, and that's a show that I don't think is on HBO Max that needs to be.
Yeah.
because I feel like if it was, it would find its ground and its people again, and you would definitely see more. Because being on Sci-Fi, I think really was people like, huh, Sci-Fi, what? But I don't know. As far as like really, I haven't put a lot of thought into it because I really like being surprised with things. A proper cyborg Superman could be interesting, but at the same time, I'm like, do I want to go that way? Not really.
When they did the Eradicator in season 1, my head went to, the character, not the.
Eradicator is always weird. I mean, in the comics, I feel like they've changed up what it is and who it is, and it's the artificial being, and trying to explain the Eradicator. I still think a crossover with Titans would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be.
And have Superboy show up, and just that kind of conflict in Clark, and with the brothers seeing, much like we have this parallel with Natalie, is like the sister they kind of have. Connor being like this kind of uncle, but yet brother. Could be really interesting storytelling. Like that's a story I would like to work on, but whatever. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of other villains I think could really make it interesting that we haven't really got to see, especially villains we haven't maybe seen, period. That, I'm thinking about in the comics recently, there's been a villain that I've really enjoyed.
I think they did it well on Krypton, but I'd almost love to see Lobo. I don't think they will do it because I think it's too much sciencey side of things, whereas this one's more grounded on Earth. Unless they go to that extreme, I'd love to see Lobo as a character in live action again. I don't think they'll go down the dark side of things. I think that's probably too much. I know they tried it in season 10 of Smallville, and I don't think it worked the way that we all wanted it to as fans. But they did what they did on a budget they had, so I appreciate what they tried to do. But
it was more like the anti-life equation, and like the dark as like this evil spirit that was coming.
Yeah, rather than the
dark
character.
Side.
Yeah.
He just never, the character never got there, kind of thing. So you can kind of wink at like, oh, Superman hasn't fought Darkseid yet. He's kind of just fought his essence. The real character is on its way. So,
and I think you're right with regards to all the other villains. Like, unless they bring Lex Luthor back, like the proper Lex, the only way they would have got around with this, like, even though we found out it was John Henry Irons, if they turned around after Crisis and found out this Lex Luthor was actually Michael Rosenbaum, I would have cheered. That's the only way I would have been excited about this being Lex Luthor for season 1. But happily I went down the path of John Henry Irons and Steel. But yeah, that's the only way I would have given him a pass mark for this being Lex.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Lex is in the Phantom Zone, so he can pop back out.
Yeah.
And like you said, this show has a more serious tone. So do I want a lot more of the zany, crazy villains? One villain I think could be better. I don't think they did him justice, was Vandal Savage.
Yeah.
When he was on Legends and Arrow, I think they really kind of underplayed Vandal Savage. They could give us a proper Vandal Savage now that it's post-Crisis, instead of being the Vandal Savage that we got was kind of a mixture of Vandal Savage and half set. They kind of blended the two characters together.
He was pretty much what the season 1 of Legends was. He's pretty much the villain.
Yep.
Season 1, yeah, I remember that.
So they could give us a proper Vandal Savage.
What about Bizarro?
I think Bizarro could be cool. Like there was conversation the other day on Twitter amongst some super podcasters. I think it was the Superfan podcast had put out about could Bizarro be its own villain for a Superman movie? And my point was no, because I think but Bizarro's been done so many different ways.
Yeah.
I think if you really wanted to do him, you do the clone instead of the Bizarro world. I think when you do Bizarro world, it gets too mucky.
So
In this, first of all, I'm not a huge Bizarro fan. The Bizarro speak gets to me. I hate reading it in comics.
Yeah.
So if you did kind of the story arc in something where, kind of like how he was darker and like he's a clone that's like the darker version of Clark, much like in Smallville's Bizarro.
Yeah.
But then he slowly starts to become flawed and starts to descend into a kind of a state of madness. And you got the sort of the speech, the slur, the deformities. But even then, I mean, they did Bizarro on Supergirl, in season 1.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, how much do we want to retread? My stuff is thoughts on things that I feel weren't done well or were really off par, but I like the idea of doing something new, and that's exciting. What's a new challenge for Clark? Do we do the storyline maybe of Clark Kent being revealed as Superman to the world? What would that look like if we did that on TV or in a movie? Like, we haven't really explored that in other media. So what do we do?
Yeah, I think the only time I can remember that was I think there's an episode of Smallville when I can't remember the character's name, but he basically got renounced to the world, and at the end of the episode, it all got fixed, and I can't remember her name. Tori Spelling, I think, was the character in the episode. But yeah, that's the only time I can remember. Clark getting renounced as such, and then at the end of the episode, it all gets fixed. And I think he uses Legion Ring, or I know it all comes back to he turns back time and gets to stop before it happens. That's the last time I can remember Clark
The only other, like, an interesting plot point, if they wanted to go there, if they wanted to kind of make continuity work a little bit, and that could be interesting, is you have some sort of cosmic being, like, the Monitor, or someone that remembers the pre-crisis timeline, and you have this idea that they talk about how John Kent and Jordan, if you wanted to kind of almost do a Superman blue and red thing where their energies or whatever have to be restored into one person, and like these two can't exist as separate entities, or I don't know. If you wanted to kind of explore like the fallout of Crisis in that way, could be something interesting or not. Like I said, it just kind of depends on if they want to kind of keep tight continuity, or they just want to kind of slowly branch out. I mean, in a lot of ways, the Arrowverse, that beautiful thing that we were promised of the connective stories and the excitement, has kind of fizzled after Crisis. We've struggled to get characters, even though they're on the same Earth, together in storylines, and that's a reflection of real world events as much as it is the showrunners and stories. So do they want to just keep it over here? Like, it's connected, but we're just not acknowledging anything. So
yeah, that was the hardest thing, I think. And that's the best thing about the series as well, is you can watch it without even watching the rest of Arrowverse to see where it interlinks with each other. Like I said, Diggle was the only one that I can remember from season 1 that actually came in from the Arrowverse. He's finished on Arrow anyway, so he's got no further storyline going on. And even though we all want him to be John Stewart, we all want him to be the Green Lantern, they're just not showing us that case either. So, season 2 will be interesting to see whether it's, like, as you mentioned before, with regards to real world events. We all know that's the reason why they're not bringing the shows together, because they're obviously in their own bubble. They're all doing their own restrictions and all the like. But I do love the fact you can love it for what it is. Just know that they can they can still talk about. I just want them to talk about those other characters. Like I want Clark to actually talk about the other characters that he's met along the way. Like he was in Crisis. He knows Flash. He knows obviously Kara and all that stuff. I just want him to talk about more of those characters moving forward, so we all know that he knows them, and we know that it's all one collection of shows together. That's the only thing I like to see movies.
I agree. I agree. I'm sitting there thinking more about speculative story ideas. My wife's messaging me asking if I'm hungry. And I'm like, of course, woman. Of course I am. It's just, like maybe they take a beat from Superman Grounded where Clark feels like he needs to see the world or something and explores, walks around the world, or, I don't know. We'll see. We're going to put a pin in it there. And Nate, thanks for joining us. Tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah, first, thanks very much for having me again. You can find me online. I do a podcast called Superman the Animated Podcast. Lucky enough to have Tyler on to talking about season 3 of Superman the Animated Podcast. You can find us anywhere on your podcast app, but also you can find us on social media at Sup Animated Pod, or you can find me personally at the M-Word 81 on Twitter. Find me on Facebook at M-Word 81. Or you can reach out to me on Instagram at mword.81.
All right. Check it out. It's fun. It's definitely a trip to take of just enjoying the episodes of the animated series, which is amazing. I'm about to start a rewatch with my kids. We've kind of done hit and miss, but I think we're just going to sit down and kind of go through it. So it's a good time. And remember, listeners, do you like movies? Of course you do. Do you like comic book movies? Of course you do. Well, our Patreon is launched now. It's $1 a month. That's all we ask. $1 a month to hear great content. And right now, one of the biggest things we're doing on our Patreon is movie commentaries. I am a movie person, and I love to talk about movies. So what we're doing is at least 2 movie commentaries a month. You'll hear the wonderful voice of my wife, Jania, more often, and other special shows. Check out our Patreon at KryptonReport.com/Patreon. And all we ask is, hey, $1. It helps us keep the show on. We're not looking to get rich. We just help with the cost of doing this, and it helps a friend out. You loan a friend $1, you probably have $1 lying around the house and change. So check out patreon.com/KryptonReport. Sign up for the $1 a month and send us a message. You can be on the podcast. We can talk about something, anything you want to talk about. You can join us for a movie commentary if you want. So check it out.
And if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
If you're enjoying this podcast, here's some of our favorite podcasts to check out. Digging for Kryptonite, The Aspiring Kryptonian, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Geek of Steel, the All-Star Superfan Podcast, It All Comes Back to Superman, and Superboy Legacy, Supergirl Radio, and of course, always hold on to Smallville. Check all those out, enjoy those supercasts, and remember, keep listening. The Krypton Report is a Tears production. We thank you for listening and enjoying, and please support us on our Patreon account, our TeePublic store, and check out our social media. Always remember to look up in the sky.